fall of 2022. We'll cover some other topics, time dependent as well. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me?
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove podcast presented by Shocked Energy. Go to shockedenergy.com. Use the code STOVE. You get 10% off your purchase of this no sugar, low carbs. That doesn't sound right. No calories? I don't remember. I'm a great partner for Shocked Energy. They got flavored watermelon and also green apple. Go to shockedenergy.com. Use the code STOVE. 10% off your purchase. Welcome in, and Dad's back with me after the long weekend of the NFL draft. Dad, was it everything you hoped it would be?
Yes, it was. It was a really good draft, and like I said, with the Packers having lots of picks, it kept me kind of interested in all the different rounds, and kept up with quite a bit of it. Didn't watch all of it, but definitely kept up with what was going on it pretty much through the whole draft. So, yeah, I think, again, it was up in the air from the beginning, not knowing what direction it was going to go, and it definitely lived up to that in the middle of the first round.
I thought it was fun. Of course, I watched the entire first round, pretty much the entire second and third round, and then a good bit of Saturday's fourth through seventh round as well. I really enjoyed the draft, so spent a lot of time there. Got to spend some time Saturday at the Eastern Kentucky University spring game for football, so went out and enjoyed a little spring football as well. But nonetheless, we're going to talk a lot about the draft here today. We're going to get into some other topics if we have time at the end as well. Dad, let's start with the Green Bay Packers, just because we're Packer fans. Get this out of the way. Everybody said wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. Obviously, when they got to pick 22, there really wasn't any first-round wide receivers there for them to take. So they don't go wide receiver in the first round. They do go wide receiver in the second round. They also get another guy in the fourth round. Are you pleased with the receivers the Packers took, and how much of an impact will those rookies have here in year one?
I think they did well. Again, I think they wanted to get a guy earlier in the first round. I've heard they tried to move up, wasn't able to do that. And so they definitely had one more guy they were after and moved up to get him in the second round. He has great potential as far as he's got the speed, he's got the size. The only question to be, he played at North Dakota State. So, did he play against the competition? I think that's the main question. I'm real intrigued about the other kid, Romeo from Nevada. Looks like that could be, one that has potential to be real good. I think all these guys are returners. And then they got one in the seventh round, too, who's got great size, 6'3" or whatever, from Nebraska. And be interesting to see. I think they've helped themselves. I've noticed already on the undrafted free agents, they brought in 2 or 3 wide receivers there. So I think they have plenty of people for the competition. And you never know. They could still try to do something with a trade. I don't believe there's much out there in free agency, but I think they're pretty happy with where they're headed. And, if either one of those guys turns out to be really good in his first year, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they're going to need them to be good. I mean, honestly, unless they go out and do something crazy that we're not expecting. My thought was, Dad, Arizona, they went out and got Hollywood Brown. I thought, wonder if DeAndre Hopkins is available. I don't think that he is, but I thought that's an interesting thing to watch and kind of see maybe there's some availability there. I don't know. Of course, wide receivers got traded during the draft. A.J. Brown, we'll talk about that here in a moment as well. So plenty of excitement in the draft. So let's get right into it, Dad, with let's start with the winners of the draft. I thought a lot of teams did really well in this draft. So I got a bunch of guys. Basically, when I think of winners, I think of a high draft grade. If I would give them an A A plus, A minus, somewhere in that range is kind of what I look as winners to some degree. But I guess you could always determine this different ways. So who's the first winner you had, or a winner you had in the draft this week?
I think it'd be the Jets. I think they did a really good job, helped themselves in a lot of areas. I think they have players that could make a big difference right away, and they had a need for that. And it looked like they took advantage of their spot in the draft pretty well.
I agree with you 100%. They got what many people said was the number one cornerback in Sauce Gardner, what several thought was the number one receiver in Garrett Wilson, what most thought was the number one running back in Breece Hall, and they get trade back into the first round to get Jermaine Johnson, who is a top 2, 3, top 3, 4 edge rusher in this draft, and they get him at number 26 overall. They go out and get a tight end to add some depth there as well. So I thought the Jets probably had the best draft of everybody, in my opinion. I love what they got. I think they can step up right away. It still all comes down to Zach Wilson, right? Whatever Zach Wilson is what the Jets will be this year. But I think they did some things to get a lot better very quickly there in New York. So I agree with you on that as well. A winner that I had, Dad, outside of the Jets was Baltimore. I thought Baltimore did some really special things. They were able to move back. They get the number one safety in the draft in Kyle Hamilton at number 14. They trade down again in the first round and get Tyler Linderbaum, the center out of Iowa, which is pretty good. In the second round, they pick up David Ojabo. In the third round, they get Travis Jones, who some people had as an upper second-round pick. There, they get an offensive lineman from Minnesota. I cannot pronounce his name, Daniel Falele, who many people think could develop into something special there on the offensive line as well. Cornerback from Alabama in the fourth. They made some positive things. I like the tight end. They had a ton of fourth-round picks. They got a tight end there, Isaiah Likely from Coastal Carolina, that I'm high on as well. So I thought a really interesting selection here for Baltimore. They actually drafted 2 tight ends, Dad, in this draft as well. So, and of course, they got Mark Andrews in-house also. So plenty of things going there for Baltimore. I thought they were pretty good winners here in this draft as well.
Yes, they were one of the teams I had up there. I think they definitely did a great job.
All right, who else you got on your list? Winners.
Philadelphia, surprised about that. Don't know if the Eagles have been one but it seemed like they made good picks. And again, I think, helped themselves there. So I had the Eagles down as a good job.
Yeah, I had the Eagles as a winner as well. One of the main reasons is they acquired A.J. Brown in this draft. And all they had to give up was one first-round draft pick for it, pretty much. So they get A.J. Brown. I'm going to count that as part of their draft grade. They get Jordan Davis from Georgia, who I was really high on. Everybody was really high on. They get Nakobe Dean in the third round. Now, he's got an injury that he doesn't want to get surgery on. But to be able to get a guy that most people had slotted, not most people, everybody had slotted in the first round, to be able to get him in the third round is a huge steal and an opportunity there to make the most. They had very few picks. They ended up with 5 draft picks in the whole week. And 2 of those draft picks are guys that should start on their defensive line or defense for a long time. Cameron Jurgens from Nebraska center, interior lineman they get in the second round as well to see if maybe he is the heir apparent there at center for the Eagles. But a huge day for the Eagles. Getting A.J. Brown was a big part of that for sure. You think A.J. Brown, what does that do for the Eagles?
Yes, I mean, he's been very, very, very productive for the Titans. And, I think it'll help Jalen Hurts, and he should be a great help. He's a really good wide receiver, and he's young.
Yeah, he's young. They have to pay him, but it's not. They only pay him $25 million a year, 4-year, $100 million contract. You got Devontae Smith on the other side. That spreads, opens it up a little bit too. So the Eagles doing their part, but again, just like the Jets, it kind of comes back to quarterback. If Jalen Hurts can play anywhere close to potential, they could be a really good team and could definitely battle some things there for the Eagles. Their odds for the Super Bowl went from 50-1 to 40-1 after the A.J. Brown trade. I believe their win total for next year is currently at 8.5, so still kind of low. But in that East, that NFC East hasn't been that great as of late as well. What's another winner you got?
I think Kansas City did real well for picking late and making the moves they did. I think they helped strengthen themselves a little bit.
I'm 100% with you again. Trent McDuffie from Washington, they get him at number 21. I had him slotted to go up in the top 12. George Karlaftis, we both kind of liked him at that similar range, number 30. So a good pickup there. They get Sky Moore in the second round at wide receiver. Brian Cook from Cincinnati to safety in the second round. Leo Chenal, linebacker from Wisconsin, there in the third round. They get Darian Kennard in the fifth round, Kentucky offensive guard. He fell on the draft board because apparently he had some political views that people didn't like. But he's a solid offensive lineman, and they've already got a solid offensive line, but he adds some good depth to them as well. I love the McDuffie, Karlaftis picks. I think the Sky Moore pick is pretty solid too, and then Chenal, Cook, Kennard, all good picks. So I'm with you. I think Kansas City did well. Still question what they're going to look like this year, just not having Tyreek Hill, but they've done a lot to add pieces there to that offense. So Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore all step in to go with McCole Hardman there, and hopefully for Kansas City's sake, hopefully they get things rolling there again. How many more winners you got?
I've actually got definitely one more, I think.
All right, go ahead and give me your last one.
I think it would be Detroit. I think they helped themselves. I don't know about their full draft class, but, they got two guys that should be dynamic players. Now, Williams, we don't know how quick he's going to get on the field, but to get a wide receiver, I think most people thought, he has the most potential of all of them, even though, Kid Wilson is really good, highly ranked too. And I think Hutchinson is going to be a great player for him, and it'll fit well with him being a Michigan guy. It's going to help the fan base as well.
Yeah, I didn't have them as my winners. I agree with you. I think Hutchinson and Williams were big-time picks. Josh Paschal, seen him play here in Lexington as a solid player. I give them more in that B+B range on my draft grade, which is why I didn't have them as a winner. But I definitely think you're right. I think they improved their team for sure in the draft. And having Hutchinson be there at 2 was a big win for Detroit. And then they made the move to go up and get Jamison Williams. And once he's recovered, he should be a pretty solid receiver. A couple other teams that I had, Dad. Carolina is an interesting team. I've got them as winners. They get the best offensive lineman in Ekwonu there at number 6. They're patient. They don't trade up and reach. They wait. In the third round, they get Matt Corral at quarterback, and he can come in and compete. And you're not losing anything really if he doesn't get anything. He's the 30th pick in the third round. So they got time to work with him there. Brandon Smith from Penn State, a linebacker. Amari Barno fell down the boards all the way to the 6th round. He was slotted to go closer into the upper 3rd round. So he made a fall. So they got him in the 6th round. They also get Cade Mays, Dad, a Tennessee offensive lineman. Got a lot of success at Tennessee and should produce well, I think, in the pros too. So I've got Carolina as one of my winners. Houston is another team. You got some of these lower-end teams that picked high this year. I like what Houston did. They get Stingley, their guy, at number 3. It's kind of a wait and see. I think Sauce Gardner was the safer pick, but Stingley's got a ton of talent somewhere in there. Kenyon Green, offensive lineman, they get him at their 2nd pick in the 1st round. They actually moved down a couple spots and get him. They get Petrie from Baylor, the slot/safety. John Mechie in the 2nd round, wide receiver from Alabama, is good. Christian Harris, inside linebacker, is really good. Damian Pierce, the running back from Florida, is really good. So they've got some guys there in this draft that I think really made them a better team. So I went with them, and then I also went with Jacksonville, Dad. Of course, they had the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row. And Jacksonville, I thought, was very fortunate with the way the board fell to them. They go Trayvon Walker at 1. That's a wait-and-see pick because there's a lot of question marks around exactly what he'll be, especially in year 1. But they get Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah that most people had as the number 1 linebacker. If not, he was the number 2 inside linebacker. They get a starting center in Luke Fortner at the 3rd round. And then they get another starting linebacker, Chad Muma. I said it before the draft. He was one of my favorite players, not in the 1st round. And they get him in the 3rd round as well. So I really like what Jacksonville did. The Trayvon Walker one is questionable to some degree, but everybody had him as a top 6 pick. So it's not like a huge reach to take him number 1. That's the guy they went for and the guy they liked. What do you think about Jacksonville and Houston specifically?
I agree. Both of them. Definitely Houston. I think, we talked about they just needed players and they needed to not miss. And it looks like they've got some guys that can play. So, again, if Lovie Smith can get things in the right direction, I think, locker room wise and everything, they've still got a lot of needs, but they got guys that should help them, and it should be a good base for a few years. And Jacksonville, like I said, they got some good players. We know for sure about Walker as time goes on, but made some good picks and should have helped themselves too.
All right, we're going to go to losers of the draft now. I'll go first because I think I've got at least one more than you do. So I'll start it off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I thought they reached with their first pick. They traded down first pick of the second round. They go Logan Hall with Houston. I just felt like there was better talent on the board than Logan Hall. Then from there, they go Godecki, the Central Michigan offensive lineman. They go with a running back in the third round, a punter in the fourth round. He's a good punter and all, and you got to get him, so I guess it's fine. But to me, it's just a very underwhelming draft from Tampa. Didn't do a whole lot to help them out this year, and honestly, I don't think they did a ton to help them out in the years to come as far as guys that can turn into legit stars in this league. So I put Tampa as my loser. Did they make your list of losers?
No, but that makes sense. So again, this draft, I think most everyone did well. There were some that didn't. As far as being horrible losers, I don't know, but I didn't have them. So
all right, who's somebody on your list then?
Well, as you could guess, and I would enjoy it, but I don't think Dallas helped themselves. I don't believe they did real well in this draft. They got a guy that could be a good offensive tackle for them, but compared to the last few years when they've got some real impact players, I'm not sure they helped themselves a lot where the other teams in their division, at least two of them, I think, with the Giants and the Eagles did.
Yeah, when I look at losers, I look at really the top of the draft for them to see if they got anybody that's going to impact things. Because the later you get in the rounds, especially 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, it's kind of, everything's kind of hit or miss. Dallas, they made my loser list as well, Dad. Tyler Smith, I just felt like there was better talent on the board than Tyler Smith. And then from there, they didn't really grow with anybody that makes a ton of sense, that just jumps out as great gets. Jake Ferguson, the tight end in the 4th round, okay, they not a huge need for Dallas, but you got to have backups too. So there's that as well. I was not impressed with Dallas's draft this year either. So they made my loser list as well. Another one on my list, Dad, is the New England Patriots. New England came out. They went with a big reach going with Cole Strange in the first round. Again, that's the guy that they just had to have, I guess, but I thought that was a major reach there. They go with a Baylor wide receiver in the second round. Not my favorite receiver either on the board or even available. 4th round, they go Bailey Zappi, the Western Kentucky quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you got to have backups. I understand all that, but they've got backups. They got Brian Hoyer. They still got Jared Stidham on the roster. I don't know. I was really surprised by this draft. You're always kind of wondering what they're going to do. This one, I just sit back and go, this one doesn't make sense to me. So I put the New England Patriots on my loser list.
No, I can agree with what you said there. There's no question about that. Belichick always does interesting things, but you kind of stand back and look and think that maybe somebody just threw darts from the back of the room on this one. So you don't know.
Yeah, if you have to try to prove that you're smarter than everyone else, are you really smarter than everyone else?
That's it.
Okay, who's another loser on your list?
They didn't have a lot of picks, but I don't think they made any real noise to help themselves. Would be Indianapolis. I like Indianapolis, but I don't see where they got a lot of help in this draft. They didn't have a lot of picks, and again, I think any of the teams that were short on picks, ended up hurting themselves on this one because I think there was a lot of talent there to help, and that's where Indianapolis falls.
So I didn't put Indianapolis as a loser. I've got them definitely middle of the pack. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, wide receiver, but they're picking at 21 in the second round. So it's that. I like Jelani Woods' pick, the third round tight end. I do like him. I thought Bernard Raymond was a great value in the third round as well for them. But I didn't think it was horrible, but I didn't put them as a loser. I didn't think they were quite that low. Where I thought you were going with that, Dad, was Miami. Miami's on my loser list. They only had 4 draft picks. None of them, in my opinion, are like, oh, wow, great pick. But again, you got them later in the draft, 3rd round, 4th round, 2 7th rounders. Just not a whole lot there. Drafted a quarterback in the 7th round, Skylar Thompson from Kansas State. I don't know. I just thought that they kind of missed on this draft as well. So Miami's on my loser list. You got another loser?
Yes, and again, this is a team with not a lot of picks, even though they made a really good first pick, and that's New Orleans. I think Olave, again, there was some question whether he was quite that high, but I think he'll do really well. Outside of that, I think Penning, has potential to do okay, but then they just didn't have a lot of picks, and, they could have benefited, I think, from more good players there.
Yeah, Olave I thought was high for him, but I'm probably the NFL probably disagrees with me considering all the trades that went up and got receivers in that area. Trevor Penning is a question mark in my opinion. I knew he would go 1st round. Just I'm not sure that I'm sold on that being the great pick. I love Alontae Taylor, Dad. He's a cornerback out of Tennessee. Remember when he came into Tennessee as a freshman and the potential that he has there. So I definitely did not put New Orleans as a loser. I thought they were, again, not winners, but not losers either. My last loser, Dad, is Cincinnati. Cincinnati comes in, again, not a whole lot of picks. They get 3 guys that do the same thing, safety/slot cover guys. Daxton Hill in Michigan, Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska, and then Tyson Anderson from Toledo. And I just felt like they spent a lot of draft capital trying to find one person to fill the need. So they took 3 guys hoping they hit on one of them. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I could be wrong. Obviously, they're smarter. They get paid to do this, and I do not. So maybe they'll end up being great picks. I just was not impressed. Again, I don't think a team that made the Super Bowl last year, you want to improve yourself in the draft. And I don't think they did it. They improved themselves in free agency, but I felt like the draft is almost like they mailed it in. Not impressed at all with the Cincinnati draft pick. Have you been able to listen to any Cincinnati talk yet to hear how the fan base is taking it?
I haven't listened to a whole lot, over the weekend there, and we'll see. I think, again, they helped themselves in free agency so much. I think this area was where they had need. So I think, but like I said, 3 players at the same spot may have been a little too much. But this was the area they had to address, and hopefully it helps there. And again, they didn't have a lot of picks, so.
Yeah, in the 1st round, they took Daxton Hill. They passed on Andrew Booth. He went about, I think, 12 spots later. There's another cornerback or 2 taken before Andrew Booth went off the board. So I think you had Kyler Gordon from Washington, Andrew Booth from Clemson, all taken after this pick. I felt like both of those guys would have been better than Daxton Hill. And then when they took their 2nd round pick and drafted the guy from Nebraska, same position, and the 5th round pick, same position, I was just, again, if one of them hits and they end up being really good, then I guess it works out just fine. But it seems like you waste draft capital on a year that you're, not that far from championships, for the Super Bowl championship last year. So how they shake it all out, we will see there as well. All right, Dad, I'll give you a couple of quick thoughts and you give your opinions on it. I went with best value picks of the draft, and so I grabbed just 7 of them that stood out to me. The Titans and Malik Willis, 86th overall pick. Let's talk about quarterbacks as a whole, I guess, first. Kenny Pickett goes at number 20 to the Steelers. Then not another quarterback off the board until the 3rd round. Actually, Desmond Ridder, the 2nd quarterback off the board with Atlanta. Then the Titans take Willis, and then Matt Corral goes as well to Carolina. The reason why I was surprised at this, Dad, is the NFL over the years has not been patient on quarterbacks. They've traded up. They've overvalued them because they had to get a guy. And it seems like this year the teams were content to say, you know what? If we don't get a quarterback this year, it's no big deal. And then when they finally fell to him at a 3rd round, they said, well, might as well take one here. I was impressed by that. That's what surprised me, not the fact that these quarterbacks were not 1st-round talent, but that they actually didn't get drafted in the 1st round. That surprised me.
Yes, no, I think they were right. I think if if any more would have went in the first round, it wouldn't have been wise. I was a little surprised nobody went up in the second, but I think the third and the fourth is about where a lot of them fit. So and I think far as the quarterback's concerned, in most cases, they ended up being in probably a fairly good situation for them. So.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about Pickett. He made my worst value. He went number 20 to Pittsburgh. I don't know. I get trusting Pickett more than Willis because he played at a higher level. He played in Pittsburgh. He's knows the area. They got to see him at practice. They played in their stadium. I mean, my goodness, they saw plenty of them, so they knew him very well. Mitch Trubisky's there, and I don't see Pickett being better than Mitch Trubisky.
No, I think being from Pittsburgh, I think there's some benefits to that with the team and the fan base. I think if they're smart, Trubisky will be the quarterback this year, and I think he'll have to look at it as an audition. A little bit of where he was in Buffalo, but he should get to be the starter this year, and I think then it could help him. If Pickens ends up being the guy they want, which I think would be what they're after. Trubisky having a year as a starter could probably put him in good shape for next year. So I don't know now if it gets to be a quarterback controversy during the year, then it'll be tough, on him there from that standpoint. But I think Pickens, looking at it now, could have they got him in the second round, or would somebody have come up and got him? You don't really know that.
Yeah, Pickett is the quarterback. Pickens is the receiver they drafted in the second or third round.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But I agree with you. I don't know how everybody else had Pickett valued. I don't know if other guys would have got him in the second round. When we got to day 2, Dad, Titans had the third overall pick in the second round, and I was on the Belly Up Fantasy Show, and I said it makes sense for the Titans to take Malik Willis here. They passed on him at number 3 in the second round. They got him in the third round at 86, and I think the value there is just phenomenal for Malik Willis. He fits the system that's already in place. He no pressure to start this year. He'll sit behind Tannehill for possibly 2 years, and then have a chance to take over from there. I love the pickup for Tennessee, getting Malik Willis at number 86 overall.
Yes, he has great potential. I never know how the Titans are going to handle things and handle players, so I don't know if they'll handle this right. But yeah, if he sits behind Tannehill for a year or two, he's a guy that definitely would have the physical ability. And right now, yes, he would fit into the system. Again, with losing the receiver Brown, that was a little bit of a difference. But again, I think Tannehill, apart from injury, should be good. And if Willis goes into it with the idea of, hey, I got a couple of years to learn and get used to it, if that all works fine. Tennessee has a history of having quarterback controversies in the past. Now, they've stuck with Tannehill, but they really haven't had a guy behind him that you really had a chance to challenge him. So be interested to see how they handle it. But no, it's a good spot for him, and I think it's definitely better they got him in the third than the second.
Yeah, Matt Corral goes as well to Carolina. He might be the first rookie quarterback to play this year. You're sitting behind Sam Darnold. I mean, hello. So Matt Corral goes, but a decent spot. They got some talent there at wide receiver. The receivers, the former receiver, Steve Smith, very vocal on the fact they do not want Baker Mayfield in Carolina. They go out and get Matt Corral. And like I said, in a perfect world, you drafted in the third round. You're not going to get a whole lot of pressure to play, but you're sitting behind Sam Darnold. You start the season 1-5, you better believe the fan base is going to be clamoring to see some Matt Corral this year.
Yes, again, if Corral can get healthy, I think he has potential of all the quarterbacks to do well, and I think he's in a great spot there in Carolina. He won't have to start immediately. I think unless Darnold really, really surprises, I think before the year's over, Corral would get a chance so they can see exactly what they got. But they've got time for him to get healthy and get in that position, so I think it was a really good spot for him.
I'm not sure if anybody took a bigger fall had they come out last year versus this year, and then Sam Howell would have been a first round pick, possibly the first overall pick. He was being told he was going to be the first overall pick this year. Had he go back to North Carolina, and he did go back to North Carolina, and everything went kaboom for him. He lost 2 running backs to the draft. He lost receivers, offensive linemen. Everything went against Sam Howell last year at North Carolina. He gets taken in the 5th round, number 144 overall, to the Washington Commanders. And Dad, from Washington, I'm ecstatic about this. Number 1, Sam Howell has talent. Number 2, there is zero pressure to play Sam Howell. Number 3, you got Carson Wentz there, who may not be the greatest quarterback of all time. That's put it lightly. And you got a kid with so much potential that maybe a year on behind Carson Wentz, maybe 2 years behind Carson Wentz, Sam Howell actually ends up being a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think this is a great pick by Washington in the 5th round. And again, you're out nothing really if he doesn't pan out. But I think there's potential. Sam Howell could be a average to above average NFL starting quarterback.
No, he's in a good spot. Like I said, there's no pressure there, and I think playing with Carson Wentz and being behind him, that's probably a good guy in a lot of ways. And it could work out real well for him and real well for Washington.
Other value picks that I had non-quarterbacks wise, we kind of already talked about some of these. Nakobe Dean, 3rd round, 83 overall to Philadelphia, a big get for Philadelphia. Let's see here. Jacksonville, they got Lloyd at 27. Fortner, starting offensive lineman at 65, and Muma at 70, I thought were great picks. We talked about the Jets already. Jermaine Johnson, going back up and getting him at 26. Great value for him. And the Jets just made a lot of improvement. Baltimore, getting Travis Jones in the 3rd round, 76 overall. He's the defensive lineman from UConn. Most people had him in the 2nd round. So to get him at 76, I thought was a pretty good get for them. And then the other one I have, Dad, is Pittsburgh. I didn't love Pittsburgh's draft, but Calvin Allen in the 4th round, the wide receiver from Memphis, 138 overall. I think he will contribute right off the bat as well. And he was the 2nd receiver they took. They got George Pickens from Georgia, who I talked about in previous episodes. Absolutely love George Pickens, but he's got health issues. Calvin Allen coming in the 4th round, I think, is a big get. Pittsburgh actually has a pretty decent wide receiver core now when you include Allen and Pickens with Johnson and Chase Claypool. They're pretty solid at that spot too. So those are kind of the guys that I looked at and said, boy, good picks, good moves, and good patience by the teams to get those guys. Any comment on those guys or anything else value-wise that you want to talk about?
No, I agree with those guys. What do you think about Ritter? It seemed like he's probably in a good spot there at Atlanta too, as far as the other quarterback is concerned.
So for me, I have to wait and see on Ritter. I like his attitude. He's going to get him a Super Bowl, he said, all that kind of stuff. I can appreciate all that. I don't know. I would have taken Willis if I was Atlanta. I thought the fit would have been good there. Again, and Ritter fits what they're doing with Marcus Mariota and stuff as well. But I thought Willis made more sense in Atlanta than Ritter does. But, I like Ritter. I thought Ritter would be the 3rd quarterback off the board. He was the 2nd. For me, though, Atlanta's kind of a question mark all the way around because they went out and got a receiver, but I mean, they got one receiver. They got a tight end that's supposed to be really good, of course, as well. They just have a long ways to go before they're going to be good again. And they're going to have to add several more pieces for Ritter to be successful, I think. And Atlanta's the team I'm down on. I'm not big on what they've done. So for that reason, I guess for me, I'm a little down on the Ritter situation, at least him having success here in the next 4 or 5 years. I think it's going to be really, really hard for Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on that. And, we'll see. I think it's a little bit like Carolina. I mean, if Mariota doesn't pan out, he might have a shot to play. But Mariota may fit real well with them. We'll see. As high as he was drafted, it'd be good for Mariota to turn out, to be a good quarterback, but we'll see.
Yeah, and the difference between Carolina and Atlanta, Carolina has more talent than Atlanta does. So even if Atlanta starts off rough, you might be hurting Ritter more than helping him by putting him into play. And I think, Arthur Smith, I think he's a fairly patient guy. They know they're in this for the long haul just with the moves that they've made. I think they'll be patient with Mariota. And honestly, I kind of, for Mariota's sake, I hope that he does decent. Hope he does well. And but that team is just not going to be good, and that makes it pretty rough for any quarterback. Bad value picks, Dad. I had 3. We've already talked about all 3 of them. Pickett for Pittsburgh, Dallas, Tyler Smith, and New England's Cole Strange. Those were my 3 just bad value picks. Once you get in the later rounds, I don't think you really have bad value anymore, maybe other than taking wrong positions. But those were the 3 guys that stood out to me. We talked about them when we talked about the teams as well. Any bad value picks in your opinion?
No. I think they're in good shape. One of them I thought you might say, because you weren't as high on him in the draft, and I think they made a good pick, was the Chargers picking Zach Johnson. I know you probably think he went a little early, but from what I had read about him, he's going to be a very good offensive lineman, and he's got flexibility and position, and I think that'll be good.
Yeah, he. I wasn't that high on him. I had him as a high second round grade, but there's something about him, his size, what he can bring, and to the fit too. I think the fit in LA was good. So I wasn't as down on them. Of course, they were not winners in my book, nor losers. Definitely wasn't super high on him, but I don't think that was a reach like Cole Strange was. And I think it was still a better pick than Tyler Smith's. So when I'm looking at those kinds of things, that's kind of where I'm sitting at when it comes to Johnson there and the Chargers as well. We got to talk about Quay Walker, because I'm assuming there will be people listening to this going, wait a second, you said losers, you said bad value. Quay Walker, the Packers drafted him a lot higher than people had him ranked. I had him down there going to Cincinnati at 31, so that was 9 picks later. Packers go up and get him, and I'm overly optimistic about this draft pick, Dad, but want to get your thoughts on Quay Walker as well.
Well, I think he fits. He fits the system, and of course, everything I read. I mean, they really strengthened the defense, and the defense ended strong last year. And with the things they plugged in here, barring injuries, they're going to be not only real good, but they're going to be fairly deep. And this was a position where they really could use somebody. And I think you and I had talked about it on Friday that he really fits their system size-wise. He can cover tight ends. He's got a great mentor with Devondre Campbell there, and it's probably just a real good situation. I know I saw him play a little bit in college, and he is a playmaker and a guy there. Again, he only started 1 year, I guess, so there's some question there. But it seems like his attitude is good, and it may end up being a real good pick there. I think some people thought they would take Wyatt there instead of Walker maybe, and then they got Wyatt, a little later on, which was a good pick.
Well, some people would be me. Yeah, I mocked Wyatt there at 22 to the Packers. He goes to him at 28, which I think is a phenomenal pickup for them. He could have been on my best value list as well. I think that's a great pickup for them there. And then, Walker, I agree. I think he's a perfect fit for what they do. Do I like Devin Lloyd better than Walker? Yeah. Do I like Nakobe Dean better, not knowing everything about his injury stuff? Yes, as well. But I do think he is a good fit, and that's why I'm so optimistic about it as well. One of the problems that I have being on shows with non-Packer fans is they just read lists and stats and things, and they don't actually see the games. So one of the guys that was on the show that I was on for the draft, his deal is, the Packers spent all kinds of money on linebackers. And I'm sitting there going, well, yeah, on Devondre Campbell and on the rush, the edge rushers, that's not the same thing. And, they don't spend a whole lot of money on, was it Chris Bryant or whatever his name was last year. So I think it was an area of need. I think is a smart selection overall. Time will tell. How it works out, obviously, as it will with every pick in the NFL draft. So I don't know. I feel like at the end of the day, I'm okay with it, and I'm going to trust that it went right. They shouldn't have drafted a wide receiver. People say, well, they should have traded up for a wide receiver. Well, again, I think they had some conversations, but they weren't going to get, without losing both their first-round picks, they weren't going to get up to number 11 to get a guy, and they didn't want to lose both first-round picks. So it didn't make sense for them to move up. They wait and get a guy later on with wide receiver that they like. And at the end of the day, I think they come out with the best they could in this draft, and I'm happy with it. I give them like a B plus to a B as well, so higher end of average, and we'll see how it all shakes out for sure. Let's talk about a situation that we've talked about before, not in specific, but the NIL deal reared its ugly head, Dad. Miami's player comes out, Wong. He comes out and he says, "I'm entering the transfer portal unless you pay me more money." And now he's since backed off on that. But isn't that what we've been concerned about with this NIL deal stuff?
Yes, I mean, the NIL thing, without any controls, which are more controls than they have, is going to be problems. And this was, this is what everybody knew was going on, but it came to light. I mean, the idea is, hey, these kids, man, they need to get a share of the profits. These kids need to be able to make some money. Okay, we're going to help these kids out. We're going to help these kids out. Now all of a sudden it's well, hey, I'm going to go to this school if I can get more. And so that's what everyone knows. I think that with the NIL, different schools that have bigger pools are going to attract more kids. And there's a lot of discussion, I'm sure, with kids and parents about what's available in the NIL market. But this, to come out this bold about it, it's not hiding anything there. So, again, it's going to be a couple of years. They're going to have to get under control, or it's going to blow up. But we'll see how it goes.
Who's to blame? Is it this kid, Isaiah Wong? Is it his agent? Is it his parents? Is it players? Is it coaches? Is it NCAA? I mean, I look at it and go, okay, the kid has an agent. What's the agent's job? The agent's job is to get the kid as much money as possible and to make himself a lot of money as well. So the agent obviously is going to be pushing, hey, you can make more money here. Hey, you can make more money here. College kids shouldn't have agents. And this NIL stuff is going to cause all kinds of issues this way. Isaiah Wong comes out originally. The way I understand it is another kid was getting paid more, or a transfer got paid a certain amount, and he felt like he should have gotten more money with the year that he had last year. He still has his name in the NBA draft. He could pull out still if he wants to. I think June 1st is the deadline for that. But he has announced he's not going to, after he sat down and talked with Life Wallet, who is the one paying him the money, and they're going to continue the arrangement as planned, and he's going to stay at Miami if he does not end up staying in the draft. Oh, man, just again, when you talk about his agent came out and said, I immediately go, yeah, this isn't good. This is bad. Agents are always looking for more money, and they don't care about the situation the kid is in. And that's gonna hurt a lot of people here before it's all said and done. Hopefully people learn from this, because obviously there was a lot of backlash when it happened. Hopefully kids have watched and learned, hey, I can't come out and say, even if I'm thinking it, I can't come out and say it and blame the NIL deal for that as well. Just absolute craziness for sure on that end. Any other comments on that?
No, I mean, you asked who to blame, and I think it's the NCAA. It stops there. They're going to have to get some control of it, or it's going to continue to. The NCAA is probably in some trouble anyhow these days, and but I think they're to blame for this.
Okay, well, I'll still blame the agent, but I know the NCAA definitely shares a burden of blame as well. Let's talk some baseball, Dad, before we wrap up today. Of course, the baseball season is about 20-some games into the season. So far, the New York baseball Mets are looking pretty solid to get started on the season. The Brewers have things rolling now as well. Let's go to the NL West, though. You're a Giants fan. Just like last year, the Giants are right there on top. They're 14-7 as of this recording. The Dodgers right behind them at 13-7. The Padres right there at 14-8. And the Rockies actually not that far off at 12-9 as well. So are the Giants going to continue to do what they did last year?
I think there's a good chance they will. I mean, they're playing good baseball, and I think, like I said, a lot of people thought, well, last year would just be a fluke, and maybe it will end up being that way. But again, it's a tough division, but the Giants are playing well, and I see no reason why they can't. When you talk about surprise teams in the National League, I think the Giants and the Rockies. I think everybody thought the Rockies, wouldn't be anything at all, and they may struggle before it's over. But they've been a real surprise so far.
Yeah, they definitely have. San Francisco, I'll tell you, they are a fluke, and here's why. Not in a bad way. They're not going to be a horrible team or anything, but they're 6-4 at home. Last year, they were a lot better at home. I think you're just looking at who they've played so far has been a portion of that. And I think the Dodgers will eventually run away with the division there. Central, it's the Milwaukee Brewers and everybody else chasing. St. Louis, as we talked about before the season, they're kind of the only team that's going to challenge Milwaukee in the Central. The Reds, they've won 3 games, Dad. But it's talking to Reds fans is a very depressing thing to do these days.
Yeah, it is. The Reds are in bad shape, and it's only going to get worse as the year goes on. So,
another team doing well is the Miami Marlins. They're 12-8. They've surprised so far this season. Philadelphia is behind them. The Braves are behind them. The Braves will get better once they get healthy. But like I said, the Mets kind of leading the way right now. DeGrom hasn't been pitching because he's injured. But it seems like the Mets are on pace to be really good this year. They got guys like Lindor, who had a bad season last year, doing decent this year. Things are kicking around for the Mets, and looks like they're going to be the team to beat in the National League East.
Yes, yeah, the Mets are what there's talked about before the season, and right now at this part of the season, they're definitely one of the strengths in the NL.
And the American League, we'll start with the West. The Angels are finally looking like the team that we all thought they should have been 2 or 3 years ago. They lead the way at 14-8. The Mariners, the Astros, and the A's are all very close behind and packaged together there. The Rangers in last place. I assume Houston will eventually kick it into gear, but at this point, at the Angels, Shohei Ohtani is kind of leading the way and doing what he does, and it's working for the Angels so far. Is this the year we finally see the Angels back in the postseason?
Could be. The Angels are doing well, and I think Seattle is, doing well also, and that could be someone that challenges them. But we'll see if the Angels can hold up or not. But yeah, that's been a surprise. Everybody thought Houston would be the team there, and Houston is not in that spot yet. Like you said, they may get better.
The National League Central only has one team, the American League Central only has one team above 500. It's the Minnesota Twins at 13-9. The Guardians and the White Sox, the Royals, and the Tigers, all with 12 or 13 losses here in this season. This is going to be the ugly division this year. Last year, it was the National League East. This year, it's the American League Central, just an ugly, ugly division.
You would think that the White Sox will be better. They were supposed to be. So you would think they may recover from this. But, yeah, it's real surprise at this point.
Yeah, 2-7 on the road is not helping them out at all. Then finally, the American League East, you have the Yankees and the Blue Jays on top, leading the division. Tampa's at 12-10. The Red Sox below 500, they're 9-13. And the Orioles, we knew were going to be bad, at 7-14. Dad, the Blue Jays look like they might be for real finally. We knew it was coming eventually because all the young talent they have, but can they actually compete with the Yankees when it's all said and done?
It looks like it can. That should be a real good division, a good battle, and I think Tampa, is going to stay in it too. So those 3 teams, and again, being in the same division, they'll play each other a lot. But the Yankees are off to a good start. So,
final question for you, Dad: when are you going to trade me Corbin Burns in fantasy baseball? I'm doing everything I can.
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably when the Reds get in first place in the division.
Okay. All right, I'll remember that. All right. Anything else you want to add before we close up today?
No, like I said, the NFL draft was very enjoyable. It was good. And of course, now football season, we'll get into, they'll have a break here in a little while before training camp, but we'll be having, different camps and stuff like that with rookie mini camps and mini camps and that. So it'll be a lot of talk. And again, there's been a lot of movement in the NFL, and there still could be. Is there a home for Baker Mayfield? What's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo? Those are questions that still have to be answered there. And of course, baseball season in full swing. Hockey playoffs start this week. The Predators did make the playoffs, and their goalie got injured, but supposed to be back in time for the playoffs. And so hockey will start up this week too, which I love to follow with the Predators.
Yep, and the NBA's in the middle of their playoffs as well. So a lot of things happening sports-wise for sure. I want to remind people you can follow us on social media at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. Congratulations to Christopher Brown, by the way, for winning our draft challenge, mock draft challenge. He won that contest, so he'll be the proud winner of a Hot Logic stove that'll be coming his way as well. I want to remind people, if you like fantasy baseball, myself and Kevin Wilson host the Belly Up Fantasy Baseball Live. It's every Sunday live at 8 o'clock on Belly Up TV, but you can also catch the podcast version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other places. Just look up Belly Up Fantasy Baseball, and it'll pop up there for you as well. We'll cover everything for you there also. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Sports Stove Podcast. We'll be back on Wednesday with an all-new episode, The Local Hour, talking about EKU sports, and then we'll be back on Friday to discuss all the latest sports news around the world. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Sports Stove Podcast. Until next time,